Okay, let's get a check now of some of the top business news stories. Kate Moody is here in the studio. Hi there, Kate.
Hi, Tom.
Let's begin with that news from the United States. Tens of thousands of people are suddenly out of a job.
Yeah, just a day after Disney said it was cutting 28,000 jobs, American and United Airlines are beginning to lay off some 32,000 staff members. Federal aid for the sector ran out at midnight, and with it the condition that payroll remain intact. Congress has so far failed to agree new funding for the air sector. With air traffic still about 70% below normal levels, airlines have said they have no choice but to shed jobs, but that they could recall their employees if lawmakers come up with more financial support. But that could take time, as Republicans and Democrats remain divided over who to target and how.
There's a lot of debate about whether airline workers should continue to be singled out as a work group deserving of a focused, single-minded aid. There is a feeling that airline workers may not necessarily deserve the support, that really what's needed is something broader that will aid more Americans, all Americans who are out of work for no fault of their own because of the effect of this pandemic.
The number of Americans claiming unemployment benefits decreased slightly last week. 837,000 new claims were recorded by the Labor Department. That's 36,000 fewer than the previous week, but still well above pre-pandemic levels. California has suspended its processing of new applications for about 2 weeks to combat fraud, and that may have distorted Thursday's data. Well, earlier, I spoke to Elizabeth Crowfoot, senior economist at the Conference Board in New York, about the state of the U.S. labor market.
It's really difficult to get a good reading from the initial unemployment data right now. There are largely claims that these data have become increasingly unreliable. States are really mired by backlogs, by outdated systems, and now fraud. So it's difficult to get that full picture of the labor market. I think what's better will be to look at some of the data that's coming out tomorrow from the unemployment numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the jobs report. So that will give us a better indication of what this labor market recovery is really amounting to. It'll give us a better signal. So we are expecting, some continued job gains, but relative to what we've seen in the past, these strong numbers that we would consider strong are really going to be, it's relative to how we were performing in the past. And we do see that there is a slowing down of job gains, and we expect that going forward.
So we are seeing more jobs being added. About half of all the jobs that were lost during the lockdown have been recovered. But is this improvement that we saw in recent months plateauing, or are we likely to see a lot of people out of work really for the medium to long term here?
Right. I mean, it's interesting that we were at nearly a 15% unemployment rate in April, down to 8.4% in August. And a lot of those low-hanging fruit of job gains have already been picked over the summer. These businesses are really staying afloat because of the historic fiscal stimulus, right? Those PPP loans. Also, consumers that were benefiting from supplemental uninsurance payments, for example, those extra $600 a week, and also direct payments from the government. So they were really spurring additional consumption. Now that that fiscal aid has expired for both businesses and consumers, they're not going to be able to spend as much money, which does not bode well for businesses. They're probably going to be seeing increased pressure to, make ends meet. Many of these businesses, especially restaurants, have very small margins. They're not going to be able to continue at 90% capacity even. So they're going to have to continue to cut their payrolls in order to survive, if not completely close shop, especially as the weather turns and they're not able to continue operations, socially distant operations outdoors.
Let's check in on the day's trading action now. Wall Street's mixed. The Dow Jones has been losing steam as it hovers near the flat line. This as hopes for progress on Capitol Hill begin to fade. The Nasdaq is outperforming. It's still up over 1% as tech stocks lead gains there. A mixed close for the major European indices. Just the DAX closing slightly below the flat line in Frankfurt. Bayer shares plunged 13% after the German pharmaceutical giant lowered its guidance for the rest of the year. Unemployment across the Eurozone, meanwhile, increased slightly in August to 8.1%. Ireland's top court has ruled that the rolls used by sandwich chain Subway contain too much sugar to be considered bread. A franchise had appealed for a tax refund, saying that as a staple food, its bread shouldn't be subject to VAT. But 5 judges determined that the dough has a sugar content of 10% of the weight of the flour and should therefore face the same 13.5% tax as more indulgent products like ice cream and popcorn. Subway fighting back, Tom, saying that its bread is absolutely bread, but it might make you think twice before you have perhaps a more sugary sandwich than you were expecting.
Sounds a bit sort of cakey, cakey
Yes.
bread.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much indeed
Dessert
for that.
for dinner, perhaps.
Well, there's a lot of sugar in an awful lot of things we eat, but thank you so much, Kate Moody from our business desk. Thanks a lot.